Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 101, Konoha 07. Third Person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. Naruto woke up the next day calmly while having a quick breakfast before leaving with the Raijin. He reappeared in the field where he hadn't been since the bell exercise. Although it hadn't been long, the place had changed a bit. After all, they had almost destroyed and devastated this area with the fight against Jiraiya. However, it seemed that the Leaf Ninjas with earth elements had repaired the terrain, even though some marks from that fight were still visible. He was alone, being the first to arrive, but it didn't take more than 5 minutes for Hanabi to jump in front of him with Makoto behind her. Hello. Minato smiled at both girls. Hi. Good morning. After greeting them, Minato started to speak. How have your last days in Konoha been? He asked curiously. Training, Hanabi commented. I had to organize some things at home because my father is at war, but I spent most of the time training, Makoto said and looked at Minato. And you, it seems like you were quite busy with Kushina. She had no emotion in her voice, but Minato must have imagined that she saw him leaving with the Uzumaki after the funeral. Yes, I spent some time with her while visiting Mita and many of my acquaintances, Minato said. I understand, Makoto responded while Hanabi remained silent. Minato noticed that the Hyuga had quite a few bruises on her hands, probably due to some intense exercise, but he said nothing. His gaze turned aside as the white-haired man landed smoothly in front of them. Good morning, pupils, Jiraiya greeted them with a smile while the three nodded. Well, you must be wondering what kind of training I will be giving you. It's nothing complex, Jiraiya began while looking at everyone and taking out some scrolls. I will give you some jutsus. I know you've already learned nature transformation at the academy, but it's time to start training with nature jutsus that you are not naturally aligned with. He started showing the scrolls. Can we choose any element? Makoto asked. Yes, I believe it is better for you to choose which element will be most useful. But this is a training that will last for years, so choose wisely so you don't regret it in the future or try to switch and throw all the training with that element away, Jiraiya warned, while they nodded. What do you think, Minato? Makoto looked at Minato and asked. You want my opinion? He asked, surprised. I do too, Hanabi also spoke up while Jiraiya nodded with pride. Well, Minato thought for a moment. He looked at Makoto before giving his first opinion. I believe that the lightning style is a great style for you, Makoto, he said, thinking she could create jutsus like Sasuke. Minato had little interest in specializing in this element, but maybe he could pass his ideas to Makoto. I don't master it, Jiraiya interrupted, but since Minato was aligned with this element, I'm sure he can help you, he said while Minato nodded. Alright, I'll go with the lightning element, she said. Hanabi, Minato said. You have a lot of deficiencies in long-range attacks, but if you learn the right style combined with your jujitsu, you could become a powerful kunoichi, so I believe the wind element is best for you, and I'll help you with that, Minato said while the girl seemed thoughtful. In fact, she was a bit hesitant. After all, this was not traditional for her clan, and many people might look at her badly because of it. But she thought about the mission and how she was the least useful, while Minato and Makoto had done much more than she did. Alright, she said in the end, hoping her choice was right. I'll learn the wind style. That's very good. Let me repeat to you, learning a new element that is not a natural affinity is extremely challenging, so don't expect to learn as you did in the academy. This can take many years and even a decade before the first results appear. I just want you to start early with this so you can reap the benefits in the future. Jiraiya gave a small speech. Understood. Yes. Both girls responded while Jiraiya looked at Minato with interest. And you, Minato, are you interested in learning a fourth element? Jiraiya asked. Sorry, sensei. But I'm fine with 3 elements. I don't want to learn more while I can specialize in the ones I'm already neutral with. Minato said. He was never a fan of people who have all kinds of possible powers, which is why he wasn't interested in obtaining the 8 gates that Due was developing. This might also be why he didn't care to learn water or earth elements. He already had natural powers he should learn and specialize in, like the haki he hadn't learned yet but intended to develop. I'm more interested in senjutsu. Minato couldn't help but think, though he knew it was too early to learn that path. Still, he could already imagine having natural chakra in his body while using haki. He would become as powerful or even more powerful than the lightning armor of the Raikage, without using any other powers. Alright. I'll give you these 2 scrolls containing the lightning element and another, the wind element, for you. Jiraiya said while handing over the scrolls. They contain the basics of the elements. I'll talk with Minato for a while and assist you, so you can choose a better place in the training field for now. Jiraiya said, and Makoto and Hanabi nodded, going to different places to study the elements. Well, kid, I imagined you wouldn't be interested in water or earth elements, so I prepared something for you. Jiraiya took the giant scroll he always carried on his waist. Minato raised an eyebrow at this, knowing what it meant. This, he murmured. You know what this is, very well. Jiraiya smiled. This is the contract scroll of Mount Myaboku. In this war, you will need reinforcement, he said. Minato was surprised that this came so quickly. He expected it until the middle of the war, but not so soon after completing a mission with the team. Don't look like that, you will need it, Jiraiya said. After all, Minato could be a target in the nations in this war, and that was because of his own mistake. It's better for the boy to be able to count on his toads. Jiraiya opened the scroll in front of Minato. There were strange names before Minato's, but it seemed that none of them were alive. After all, Mount Myaboku should have had ancient summoners throughout history. This could be explained by the fact that the Foresight Toad itself knew the Sage of 6 Paths and his brother and convinced them to fight against Kaguya. I want you to sign the scroll with your blood, Jiraiya said, and Minato looked at it still in awe before nodding, taking a kunai, and cutting his finger. He approached the scroll and began to sign, stroke by stroke, forming Minato Namikaze. You seem shocked, boy, Jiraiya laughed at his reaction. Sorry, sensei, it's just that I'm still surprised by this, Minato admitted. Ha ha ha. Come on, now we'll learn the seals. I want you to pay attention, Jiraiya said, teaching the summoning seals. Remember to always cut your blood to create the Fuinjutsu on the ground. Jiraiya said, after all, Minato already had his finger cut. Understood, should I do it right here? Minato asked, a little anxious to make his summoning. Move a bit away, I don't want you to summon a large creature on top of us, Jiraiya warned, not doubting that Minato could summon Gamabunta directly with the amount of chakra the boy had. Minato nodded as he moved away from everyone. He reached a more isolated spot, while Makoto and Hanabi noticed his movement, but were confused. Minato began to perform all the seals, boar dog bird monkey ram. As soon as he completed them, he struck the ground directly with his still bleeding finger, creating a line of Fuinjutsu. Summoning Jutsu! Minato shouted with excitement. He felt his chakra begin to flow to his hands and the seal on the ground. This would determine what he could summon with his thoughts on the creature linked to the scroll. Minato thought of Gamabunta at first, but this started to generate a lot of chakra being drained from him. Since it was his first time, he tried to moderate, not wanting to exhaust all he had, cutting off his chakra flow while emptying half of his chakra pool. The explosion erupted from Minato, taking over the entire area while Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and Makoto and Hanabi were stunned by the amount of smoke that appeared, revealing a colossal figure. It's not Gamabunta, but it's still surprising that he summoned him, Jiraiya murmured, having no idea that Minato had stopped sending chakra as soon as half of it was consumed by the jutsu. Minato's vision was obscured by all the smoke, but he felt himself starting to rise while an enormous mass grew below him. He sensed it with his observation haki. "This is amazing," he couldn't help but shout excitedly. The smoke soon began to dissipate, and he could see everything from a much higher level. It wasn't like sitting on the Hokage's face with Kushina, but it was certainly taller than almost every building in the village. He looked back, seeing two enormous swords there. He looked down and saw two eyes staring at him, eyes that surpassed Minato in height. "Hello?" Minato waved to him cheerfully. The toad didn't speak but maintained a serene gaze. "I guess he doesn't talk much. Come to think of it, I never saw him speak in the anime. He must be discreet." Minato murmured and then addressed him again. "Hello, I'm Minato Namikaze. I just summoned you. This is my first summoning after signing Jiraiya's contract. Nice to meet you, may I know your name?" The toad remained silent, while Minato wondered if he would freak out like Gamabunta did with Naruto, but he was surprised by the toad's voice. "Gamma Hero." The name came out smoothly. Gamma Hero? Minato didn't remember his name before but was excited about it, storing the name in his memory. "That's great, Gamma Hero. I hope we can work a lot together in the future." Minato exclaimed, feeling the toad nod. "What is that?" Makoto asked Jiraiya, who was looking up with interest. "I gave him the toad's summoning contract. He seems to be talking to him." Jiraiya murmured. Incredible, Makoto was quite impressed with Minato summoning that 20-meter-tall creature with its enormous swords on its back. What is he going to do? Hanabi also approached, noticing Minato preparing for something. "I don't know," Jiraiya didn't know, unable to even see them well enough to read Minato's lips while the toad had just spoken its name. Gamma Hero was quite reserved. Suddenly, the toad's enormous legs began to move, digging into the ground as it entered a crouching position with Minato also getting ready. "He's going to jump," Jiraiya commented as an explosion happened right after, with the toad kicking the ground and leaping into the air. A gust of wind exploded from this movement, and Makoto and Hanabi shielded themselves against the strong wind while Jiraiya's hair blew backward. Gamma Hero was ascending into the sky of the village. "Ha ha ha ha! That's it!" Minato shouted from his head, trying to see how high Gamma Hero could jump after asking him. He had flown many times, but it never ceased to be thrilling while he jumped, not having the control of flying like he could using Geppo and his fruit. It was a welcome thrill as he laughed excitedly. "Raccoon here. I didn't summon Gamabunta because it would be too predictable. Minato needs to have a strong team, so I'm starting to equip Hanabi and Makoto with new elements over the next few years. I will have Hanabi fight with a bow and Makoto like Sasuke. I also didn't want to add a new element for Minato, he's already well equipped with 3. I don't like characters who have too many powers. Lastly, Minato should visit someone else in the village before heading to the war. I was thinking of having him have a small interaction with a young Kakashi." Chapter 102, Konoha 08. Third-person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. Minato finally returned to the ground as the giant toad slammed the earth beneath him with its weight after the jump. The rest of Team 7 quickly felt the impact of the force generated, while the village not too far away heard the explosion echoing through the air, startling the residents who wondered what was happening. Some ninjas quickly approached and saw the toad in the midst of the destroyed ground, immediately thinking it was Jiraiya and preparing to report it to the Hokage. Minato smiled on top of Gamma Hero's head, looking at the toad and starting to talk excitedly with a smile while the toad remained silent, listening to the boy. "Well, it looks like they are getting to know each other," Jiraiya said after things calmed down and returned to the girls. "You continue training," he said, and the girls, although glancing at Minato talking to the toad, went back to their scrolls. Minato continued talking with the toad while raising both hands and making various exaggerated gestures due to his excitement. After a while, they began to wrap up the conversation. "I hope I can count on you, Gamma Hero. I'm sure we'll be great partners," Minato said excitedly. The toad remained silent until finally responding, "Yes." Then he disappeared with an explosion shortly after, while Minato calmly landed amidst the smoke and walked over to his group in the middle of their training.
That was incredible. Minato commented to Jiraiya, waiting for him.
Jiraiya smiled and nodded. No doubt, you summoned one of the greats.
Congratulations,
he said with some pride before adopting a serious expression.
Remember to use it when necessary, he said. Understood,
Minato replied with a more serious look as well. Well, let's continue training with the girls. I'm sure you can help them,
Jiraiya continued. Understood,
Minato said, creating a shadow clone and dividing his attention with the girls to explain the elements he was already proficient in, with Makoto using lightning and Hanabi using wind.
Hours passed, and Jiraiya finally decided to call it a day. We'll resume training tomorrow,
he said, and they nodded in agreement. Minato returned to the center of Konoha, taking a different path from the group as he decided to walk back, enjoying a moment while looking at the village and stretching his legs. It was almost dusk, and Minato looked at the three faces carved into the Hokage rock.
To think that Hashirama and Madara sat there when they were just kids, talking about dreams.
Minato couldn't help but murmur, being a big fan of backstories and origins of some characters, and the story of Hashirama and Madara before creating the village was captivating. He continued walking until something caught his attention. In a small vacant lot in the middle of the village, a boy was throwing kunai at a tree, embedding them with considerable ease.
Much better than me. At this age, I hadn't even touched a kunai, Minato murmured, stopping to watch the boy, who was none other than the son of Tsukumo Hatake, and probably his future pupil. His features were unique at this age, with his white hair, and he wore a mask covering the lower part of his face. Excuse me.
Minato approached the boy without him noticing, and little Kakashi was startled, even pointing a kunai at Minato, who smiled at the reaction.
You're Minato Namikaze. Kakashi looked at him and said, surprising Minato. HM? You know me? Minato was surprised that a 4-year-old boy recognized him.
Yes, everyone says you are the greatest prodigy of this generation, perhaps the greatest in the history of Konoha,
Kakashi said, analyzing Minato while speaking through his mask.
It's strange to see someone moving their mouth behind a mask.
Minato couldn't help but think, even though he was just a child. He decided to respond to the boy calmly, well, I don't know if that's really true, but I'm always giving my best, he said at the end, not being arrogant. It doesn't matter,
Kakashi decided to respond.
Because I'm going to surpass you, he said directly to Minato. Surpass me? Ha ha. That sounds interesting. Minato didn't mind Kakashi's arrogant tone, even smiling at it.
Yes, I'm going to join the academy next year, I'll graduate the same year, I'll surpass you and then become stronger than my father,
Kakashi said.
I'm counting on it, but remember to have important things besides training and being strong.
Don't forget to make friends.
I have a godson your age who might give you a good challenge, so you better try hard, but don't forget to build bonds with the people around you,
Minato said, although he doubted that this would reach Kakashi.
He was solitary in his childhood, graduating at 5 years old and always being alone.
Minato didn't like this kind of ninja path, but who was he to influence this child? Kakashi didn't respond to Minato, just nodding, while Minato started to say goodbye and leave.
Goodbye, Kakashi.
Good luck,
he said, ignoring Kakashi's surprise that Minato knew his name, as he hadn't mentioned it once.
Minato returned home after that.
He only had a few days before leaving, so he continued training the next day with Jiraiya while leaving clones to assist with the introduction of elements he had already mastered. Another day had passed, and Minato went out with Kushina again that night, going to eat at the village's restaurants.
You're spending too much on me, Kushina complained at the end as they left an expensive restaurant. It's okay,
Minato said with a small smile.
You know,
I made good money and left some clones creating new paper bombs. I plan to deliver them to the Senju store tomorrow, so I'll easily recover the money we spent,
Minato said.
His gaze returned to the moon that night. A half moon. I'm thinking of buying a large property in Konoha, and I want to do it by the end of this war.
Minato decided to share a bit of his plans. A property, Databane? Kushina was surprised by this, not expecting something like this from Minato. Don't be so surprised.
I want to have a spacious place, he said. After all, the original Minato seemed to live in a rather small apartment. He wanted something much more dignified.
Can you imagine a place with a big wall and a sign that says Namikaze property or Namikaze clan? Minato laughed with his expression. That's really cool, Databane. Kushina exclaimed twice, before thinking of something and blushing quite a bit. You want to have a big family?
She asked. After all, no one creates a clan with just one person.
Minato felt awkward but looked at her. Yes, I'd like to have a big family.
He didn't lie. Having dozens of children where he could raise them safely with all their needs met was a thought he started having this year with his going to war.
Kushina didn't know what to say due to her shyness about this.
Don't think too much about it, you can help me choose something later,
Minato said, and Kushina nodded in the end.
Yes, she replied as he led her to the Senju clan.
So you'll be in Konoha for one more day, then you'll leave?
She asked, and he nodded. Yes, don't worry, I won't be able to say goodbye when I leave, but I'll come here at night. After all, I have Mito and Guy to see,
Minato said, and Kushina nodded. Minato returned home and the next day resumed training.
Well, you're dismissed. Tomorrow we'll leave Konoha, so spend the rest of the day with your families,
Jiraiya said as the three pupils nodded. Minato decided to stop by the hospital and see Guy's mother. He wanted to see Due and pass on information about her condition.
Afterward, he went to the orphanage again, talking to Madame Guerite once more. After saying goodbye to the children and the director, he returned to the village, enjoying his last moments of the afternoon as he went to have ramen alone one last time. But he was surprised by who he found inside.
Kushina and Makoto eating together. Minato. Kushina immediately called him to join them, and Minato went over to them. I didn't expect to see you here, Minato murmured.
Ha ha. We met in the village and decided to spend some time together since we're classmates and friends,
Kushina said cheerfully while Makoto nodded without any dislike. That's good, I'll join you, Minato said as he joined them.
They stayed together, chatting about various casual subjects and reminiscing about the academy.
Minato ate, and night finally fell over Konoha. Minato mentioned he would visit Mito and accompanied Kushina after saying goodbye to Makoto.
My boy, I hope you become a powerful Fuinjutsu user,
Mito began after he left the clan. I'll do my best, Mito-sama, Minato said. Yes, I know.
And remember, protect this village and keep alive the legacy my husband left in this world, she said with a smiling tone.
Yes, Minato said.
His attention turned to the child there as well.
And you, train hard.
I met a boy named Kakashi the other day who is your age. He said he's going to surpass me.
Will you be left behind? Minato asked Guy. Surpass you? Of course, I won't be left behind.
I've decided I'll make him my rival,
Guy shouted, despite not knowing who Minato was talking about.
I'll do 200 push-ups to prove I'll beat my mysterious rival,
he exclaimed and ran off to the yard. He's always so energetic, Mito said, laughing.
Yes, how will he be after his situation?
Minato asked carefully. He'll be fine.
Even if Kushina is disabled for a while, there will be people to take care of him.
And it's always good to have such an energetic child around you when you're at the end of your life, Mito commented. Minato then said goodbye to them and to Kushina with a strong hug that the girl gave.
Then he returned to his apartment with Raijin and prepared all his things in the storage scroll to ensure nothing was missing. So tomorrow begins the real mission at the border, he murmured, looking at the familiar ceiling. Sleep soon came, and he slept, waking up before sunrise in Konoha. He got out of bed, grabbed his things, and left quickly, locking the place. Minato went to the north gate, where there was already a large crowd of about 400 ninjas gathered with several ANBU at the gate. The whole group was a batch that had stayed in Konoha or people who had come to visit their families and were returning to the border. Everyone was going to assist the border in the Land of Rain and other borders, both to the north and the east. Even Team 2 was in the midst, waiting to leave. They were going north, seeing which group they were inserted into in the crowd.
Minato. Hanabi approached Minato in the midst of all the ninjas. "Hello, Hanabi. It looks like Makoto and Sensei have arrived too," he said as the remaining two approached. "I hope you're all ready, we'll be leaving in a few minutes," Jiraiya said while all three nodded. "It looks like we'll be together on the battlefield." Kui-sensei appeared, greeting Jiraiya and the others. Minato nodded to him with a smile. "It's good to see you, Sensei," he replied. After that, the Hokage arrived at the scene a moment later, drawing everyone's attention as he gave a speech to all the ninjas heading to the three major battlefields. "May the will of fire be with all of you." He concluded the speech, and the crowd split into three groups as Minato followed Jiraiya to the northwest with his team, leaping among the trees of the Land of Fire, heading to the battlefield between the Land of Fire, the Land of Wind, and the Land of Earth. Finally, Minato couldn't help but comment as he kicked the tree beneath him to keep up with the others moving forward. Chapter 103, Konoha Camp. Third-person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. They continued on their way for 2 days while the camp functioned normally, with some teams keeping watch in groups as they approached closer to the war. Minato finally realized they had entered the border when he could detect numerous Jonin ninjas hidden throughout the forest. There were at least 500 of them guarding this side. "Can you feel them?" Jiraiya commented as he saw Minato frown, looking around, and turned his attention to Minato, who nodded slightly. "That's good. First rule in a war, always stay vigilant and try to know everything happening around you," Jiraiya said as Minato nodded, along with Hanabi and Makoto, who also heard this. "When you go on missions outside the camp, there will always be a password so you can pass through the sentinels and avoid them attacking you," Jiraiya said. "Second rule, always stay with people you can trust with your life," he advised. "Third rule, follow the rules and orders. Any insubordination can be considered treason. Remember, in war, discipline is everything," he concluded as they got closer to a huge camp. "Will we go to the battlefield immediately, Sensei?" Makoto asked curiously. "Not yet. You may have completed an S-rank mission, but you're still Genins. You and the other Genins will be responsible for logistics, nothing too important at the moment. But there are many camps scattered along the border, and you'll be working to deliver resources from one point to another," Jiraiya said, and the three nodded. "Where is the war most intense, Sensei?" Minato asked. "Don't think that just because we're at the border, there won't be attacks. We're losing many ninjas according to the reports my sensei showed me. But the real war is happening in the Land of Rain. Our ninjas are trying to gain territory to combat the two nations, but unfortunately, we're harming a country," Jiraiya said. A silence fell over them as they moved toward a vast cleared area where the first camp they were approaching was located. The group led by Jiraiya finally arrived as some ninjas went to greet them. Not only did Team 7 land, but another 150 ninjas following this region landed right behind them. "Jiraiya." A Jonin approached, seeming to know Jiraiya while greeting him. "Hello, who's in command?" Jiraiya spoke on behalf of all the other ninjas. "It's Orochimaru," the Jonin said as Jiraiya nodded. "You all settle in the camp, we'll organize your areas of operation later," Jiraiya said, and the ninjas nodded. "I'll arrange their accommodation," the Jonin said as Jiraiya nodded. "Let's head to the command tent of this place," Jiraiya said, and Team 7 followed him. They approached as Minato noticed the place was even busier than the camp in the eastern part of the Land of Fire. People were running back and forth, ninjas shouting orders, Genins, and even many known from the academy or even from his former class running with scrolls and resources. Countless ninjas arriving at the camp and leaving. "Busy, isn't it?" Jiraiya said with a smile as he led them. "This is what a war camp looks like," Hanabi commented quietly, looking around. This won't be our camp.
Since my colleague is leading here, it's very likely we'll move to another, he said. The matter of camps was a constant change of leadership, so Jiraiya wasn't aware of who might be commanding this place when he left Konoha. They finally arrived at the command tent with some guards.
Jiraiya. Orochimaru is already aware of your arrival and asks you to enter, one of them said.
Jiraiya nodded and entered, where there was a man wearing a Jonin vest, looking at a map in front of him, showing all the current camps on the border.
Orochimaru, Jiraiya greeted as he approached the table.
Hello, Jiraiya, Orochimaru said in a tone quite disturbing to Minato and the others. Then he continued, still looking at Jiraiya, I heard you did an important mission. The reports are impressive that you were saving the daimyo of fire, and I thought you were fleeing the war. He spoke in a calm yet disturbing tone. And also, before Jiraiya could respond, he looked at the children. I read great deeds of your pupils, mine are trying their best, but I'm not as lucky as you, Jiraiya, Orochimaru said, his gaze directly on Minato.
Enough talk, Orochimaru. Can you tell me how the camp situations are? Jiraiya asked impatiently.
Sure, he said, ending the conversation as he turned his attention back to Jiraiya. We have 12 camps spread along the border between the land of fire and rain in total, as you already know, Orochimaru began. We're sending teams to the land of rain to gain territory against our adversaries, but the situation is very bad inside the country.
Hanzo is doing everything to expel all of us from his land, he said. Hanzo, the salamander, considered the ninja god?
Mikoto asked quietly. It seems so, Minato said. After all, Hanzo was considered the strongest ninja alive. He even earned the title of god.
Hanzo. Can we fight him? Jiraiya asked, scratching his head.
We'll have to find out, but I hope it won't be too soon. Orochimaru knew that fighting Hanzo was a situation that could even lead to death, so even someone like him was cautious. Very likely that you, Tsunade, and I will have to join forces to fight him when we need to stop them. After all, we are the strongest on this border, he said.
Yes.
Jiraiya agreed and continued talking to Orochimaru. Speaking of which, where is Tsunade? He asked curiously.
A camp was created just for medical treatment, where Tsunade serves as chief.
It's located in the center of all the other 11. Here. He pointed to the map as Jiraiya studied it. Besides that, I need to send some batches of supplies. There's an emergency happening, he said, grabbing Jiraiya's attention.
Emergency? Jiraiya raised an eyebrow.
Yes, Chio is giving us a lot of trouble. She is creating numerous poisons. It seems that her failed mission to try to kidnap the fire daimyo has made them more hostile. After all, you eliminated numerous stone and sand ninjas, he said.
I see.
I'll settle with my team today and see where I can be most useful. It will be good to talk to Tsunade about this too, Jiraiya said, and Orochimaru nodded. After all, Jiraiya had the same position as him and could act freely in the war. And the sensei gave orders, I suppose, Orochimaru commented. Yes, here. Jiraiya said as he handed a scroll to Orochimaru, who nodded, taking it and reading.
I see.
Very well then, you can stay in the camp while I organize this new batch of ninjas, he said, and Jiraiya nodded before leaving the tent with his students following him. That guy, he could stop looking at me like he did with Sasuke. Minato felt Orochimaru's intense gaze on him the entire time as he finally left. Let's choose a place to set up our tents for today, then eat something before resting. We'll start our routine tomorrow, he said as he led them to an unused area of the camp. Minato removed his tent from the storage scroll and began to set it up while everyone did the same. Once it was ready, he arranged his things inside. While organizing, he saw two people entering, and it was none other than his companions.
Mikoto, Hanabi? Minato looked at them.
Minato, we brought you your broth that they were serving to everyone, Mikoto said as she brought a bowl of steaming soup to him. Thanks, he said, not knowing how long he had been in there for them to have to bring this to him. They remained silent while holding their own bowls of broth, and Minato quickly understood. Let's go outside. Sit for a while, Minato suggested since he didn't want to eat inside his tent.
And where is the sensei?
He asked as they sat on crates outside the tents, looking at the busy camp. The girls, who wanted to spend some time talking with him, settled in as they began eating the broth before answering Minato. He said he was going to take care of some things with the logistics ninjas.
It seems we'll be doing such work tomorrow, Hanabi said.
It's very likely that we'll go to the medical camp he discussed with Orochimaru, Minato reasoned.
So we'll see Senju. Makoto commented, thinking about Suna and their rivalries during the academy years. Suna must be used to the war. At least better than us, Minato couldn't help but comment with a smile. Minato. What do you think of this war? Hanabi asked immediately.
Minato stayed silent, thoughtful, as he picked up a stick beside the crate and began drawing a replica of the Land of Fire on the ground. There are many things I don't know that could have led to this war, but all the nations see us as enemies.
We have a forefront battle against 5 nations.
Here, against the Land of Wind and Stone, the strongest ninjas here are the Hokage's students. In the north, against the Land of Lightning, the strongest ninja there is Tsukumo Hatake, and in the east, against Kiri, where our ninjas are fighting alongside the Uzumakis, having a friend of the village leading that side, Danzo.
Minato marked an X on each point. Will the Hokage fight? Makoto couldn't help but ask. That depends. If the battlefield needs his presence, he will act.
Like a direct attack from one of the Kages of the other nations, Minato explained. Why are we fighting in a smaller country? Hanabi asked, referring to them invading the Land of Rain to fight against 2 nations. From the moment they became allies, they needed to come together, and this territory became the most ideal for them to fight side by side. Bringing the allied countries with the enemy, Minato said. Even so, fighting against so many nations, why are they all against Konoha? Makoto still didn't understand why this war was happening and why the Land of Fire was the most attacked. These alliances between countries are quite fragile, don't be surprised if one country turns against another in the future, Minato warned. And about the reason for the war, as I said, it can be many. Resources are one of the main ones. After all, Konoha has the highest concentration of agricultural production on the continent, Minato said. He didn't exactly know why the war started. In the original story, they always talked about feudal reasons, and he was just a genin to receive real information about what was really happening. A silence fell over the trio shortly after that, while Jiraiya appeared at that moment. Well, it looks like we have our first mission tomorrow to go to the medical camp, so you are free today and tomorrow. Wake up very early, Jiraiya said, and the 3 nodded outside Minato's tent. Minato continued devouring his last bit of soup and looked at the girls.
I'm going to train some Fuinjutsu, can we meet tomorrow?
Minato asked, wanting to see the scrolls Mito gave him.
It was a good opportunity to study them.
All right, I'll read about the elemental scroll, Hanabi said. I'll do the same, Makoto said, and they all headed into their own tents. While it was still the middle of the afternoon, Minato continued reading new levels of Fuinjutsu until nightfall before sleeping and preparing for the next day's mission.
Chapter 104, Medical Camp 01. Third-person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. The next day, Minato left his tent to eat with his team. The camp seemed to be in full swing, and this wasn't an exclusive moment, it operated like this all night long. It seemed that things didn't calm down here on the border, and having 12 large camps running at the same pace only showed the gravity of the war. This place seems even busier than the one in the east. Minato approached Jiraiya, who had picked up a pot of broth to bring to his students. Yes, the war against Kiri is much calmer than fighting against 2 nations on this side, Jiraiya said while placing some bowls, one for Minato. Minato accepted and watched a group of ninjas arriving through the forest. He might not see the whole camp because it was immense, but he could still sense it with his observation haki. At least 13 ninjas arrived, most of them bleeding, and the camp quickly tended to them. Some medics were here, and some of the ninjas had lost limbs with blood gushing out from hemorrhages. Some bodies were dead, and nearby genins looked at the scene and began to vomit. Even without seeing any of it, which was happening at least 200 meters from Minato, he couldn't help but frown. Are you seeing the commotion?
Jiraiya asked. Although he wasn't a powerful sensory ninja, he still had his own abilities and could sense what was happening and what Minato was feeling at the moment.
Yes, it's pretty bad, Minato commented, as it was a very bloody scene. You'll have to get used to it. You'll see a lot of this in the coming months or years. Just make sure it's not you or your companions in this situation, he said in a serious tone, and Minato nodded. Makoto and Hanabi came out of their tents and joined them. Replenish your energy without overdoing it. We'll have a path to Tsunade's camp soon, Jiraiya warned as the girls nodded.
After that, Minato went back to packing his tent, placing it inside the storage scroll, while his colleagues did the same.
Jiraiya returned a moment later. We'll be leaving soon.
We'll be escorting a group of severely injured ninjas who arrived at the camp recently. We'll also be taking some supplies to the medical camp with a few teams, he said, and everyone nodded.
A moment later, Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi joined the front of the camp with the group.
There were at least 20 ninjas of all ranks and 10 injured ninjas being carried. Jiraiya kept the supply scroll with him and kicked the ground, with everyone else following him, while Minato and the girls stayed with the leader. The journey was the same as when they arrived at the border, with different sentinel ninjas spread throughout the forest guarding the area for Konoha while they were allowed to pass through. Everything seemed normal until Minato felt a bad sensation with his haki and an explosion occurred in the distance. Several ninjas ran toward that area. Jiraiya ordered everyone to stop immediately as the whole group positioned themselves. A battle was happening in the distance, with more and more explosions from both paper bombs and jutsus occurring.
The ninjas around them seemed to be reinforcing the battle against the enemy. Should we help them? Minato asked, feeling that the fight didn't seem good.
Let's take a look, Jiraiya said, while Minato quickly looked ahead as Jiraiya and a ninja appeared in the air.
Die, Konoha ninjas!
Whoever it was shouted while throwing kunai at them. Minato quickly threw his kunai, which clashed with the other, with an enemy paper bomb on the kunai exploding in the air.
A Konoha ninja appeared from the forest, surprising and killing the enemy there. Stay alert! There are 3 more of them coming our way.
Jiraiya exclaimed as 3 other ninjas emerged from the ground in the distance, making hand seals. The ground in front of them began to destabilize and crack, with trees falling and creating several holes. Protect the wounded, Jiraiya ordered as a group stayed behind, trying to get out of the destroyed area with the trees falling, trying to find another place to land. Makoto looked at the situation, frowning at the chaos, and glanced at her team, but noticed that Minato had disappeared. Did he use his teleportation technique, she wondered internally. He's in the air, Hanabi seemed to read her mind when she murmured, looking up.
Minato took advantage of the confusion and used Jeppo to surprise the enemy, focusing ahead.
He quickly reached above them in the next few seconds and noticed that there were no sensors, not even detecting him. 3 clones were created there, and Minato kicked the air, advancing against the enemy while his copies each had a Rasengan. One of them noticed with his own instincts as the 3 clones struck the ninjas, hitting 2 in that attack.
Ah!
They screamed before exploding the ground with their pure chakra jutsu, creating a small ball of debris.
The Konoha ninjas guarding the border arrived shortly after. Did you take them down? The Jonin was surprised by this.
One of them escaped, didn't he? Before Minato could answer the obvious question, Jiraiya approached, looking at the 2 bodies. Yes, one of them escaped, noticing my approach and using a jutsu to travel underground, Minato said. He could still follow him, but it wasn't worth it.
Alright, good job taking the initiative, Jiraiya said and looked at the Jonins. What's the situation? He wanted to know about this attack.
Jiraiya-senpai. One of the Jonin greeted him.
We had an ambush. Somehow they knew there was a supply team for the medical camp.
They tried to intercept them, but most were killed by our forces.
The few who survived and attacked you were the only ones who got through, he explained while Jiraiya nodded. Okay, good job. Let's continue the journey.
Put the wounded with our group, Jiraiya instructed, and the ninja nodded.
Many Konoha ninjas in the forest were dead from this fight.
They placed the bodies among the group and added 6 more injured, some without limbs, screaming in pain while some medics accompanied them. This is horrible, Hanabi couldn't help but murmur, a little scared seeing such a bloody scene for the first time.
Even Makoto, despite not expressing it the same way, seemed to frown as much as Hanabi. Minato remained silent.
As Jiraiya had said, he would see a lot of this, but he was surprised by it happening at the border. Jiraiya ordered them to continue shortly after, with the group in silence but on alert while some of the forest sentinels escorted them to the main camp at this border.
Like the first camp, Minato first noticed a large cleared area.
But unlike the last camp with thousands of tents, there were giant tents extending all over the area, which reminded Minato of a kind of greenhouse where they kept all the wounded and people needing urgent treatment.
Jiraiya!
A ninja came to greet them, calling Jiraiya at the camp entrance. "How was your journey?" he asked. "Hello, we had some trouble on the way, but it was resolved. We had some casualties among the sentinels and a few more wounded with us. We need urgent treatment," he said while the ninja nodded and raised his hand, with medics dressed in white coming to them and starting to provide better support to the wounded than the medics in the group could on the move. "I want you to take me to Tsunade," Jiraiya requested, and the ninja nodded. "You all settle in and take the supplies to the depot. I will deal with the camp commander with my team," Jiraiya said to the rest of the team, handing the scroll to one of those who accompanied them. Team 7 then moved forward, looking at the camp.
This one was certainly even bloodier than the last.
There were people screaming, begging not to die as they arrived from all sides, with medics dressed in white running back and forth with supplies and even stretchers, whether with someone on them or empty. There was blood all over the place. "I want to vomit," Hanabi could barely hold herself back, and Minato couldn't agree more with her. He had killed numerous people and committed massacres, but he had never been in a place with so many screams of agony all around him before.
"Hang in there,"
Jiraiya said, but he just said it in a serious tone and continued on his way. They didn't head to the main tent, which was the tallest and identical to Orochimaru's. Instead, they went to a large tent that wasn't a medical one, where 8 ninjas were guarding it. They greeted Jiraiya, and he nodded, passing by them and entering the tent.
"Damn it!"
A woman screamed, followed by the sound of glass breaking.
"You seem to be in a bad mood."
Jiraiya entered, greeting Tsunade, who looked very angry as she turned to him. "You're here." "I'm trying to create an antidote for a new poison that the Sand Ninjas developed, but I haven't succeeded yet," she said, trying to calm down.
Orochimaru mentioned something. "How are things?"
he asked, wanting to know the whole situation. "To start with, we're having this plague spread on the battlefield through gas and blade cuts from those damn puppets. Then there's the high number of ninjas returning wounded.
They're attacking every supply transport, and we're running out of medical equipment this way.
I've already sent a message to Sensei, asking for more than what you must have brought," she said, with a lot of pressure in the air. "As they say, the first years of war are always the most intense," she commented. "Unfortunately, it is," Jiraiya murmured before continuing.
"Will you return to Konoha?"
he asked. "Yes, I want to see my grandmother one last time, and I intend to take my brother and daughter as well." Tsunade spoke tiredly, she wanted to see Nito before the elder passed away.
"I figured as much.
I want to understand the situation a bit before deciding where to act."
"Is it all right if I stay here for a few days?"
Jiraiya asked. He still had 10 camps to choose from and lead, so he wanted to think carefully before deciding where to act.
"Fine, just don't get in the way."
"I'll see what you brought, but I still want to work on the antidote for this poison."
"We're having too many casualties because of it," Tsunade said, as she returned to her table full of lab equipment, studying the poison to find an antidote.
Tsunade glanced back at Jiraiya, who hadn't left with his team yet, while her gaze fell on Minato and the other 3, silently not interfering in the conversation of the Hokage's students.
"It's good to see you, kid. I read your mission report. Impressive," she complimented. Minato just nodded. "Suna is in tent number 4.
She'll be happy to see her old comrades. Now get out, I need to focus on continuing to find the antidote."
Tsunade spoke with a more severe tone at the end.
Jiraiya nodded and returned to his students. You heard her, let's go out and set up our tents in the designated area while we stay here for a few days. He said and led them out of the tent, leaving Tsunade working as she picked up some vials of poison and ran tests.
Chapter 105, Medical Camp 02. Third-person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. Minato left the tent where Tsunade was working on the antidote for the mentioned poison.
You can set up your tents in that corner of the camp, Jiraiya said, pointing his finger to a space where the non-medical personnel were staying. The three nodded while Jiraiya went to review the resources they had sent and gather information without bothering Tsunade. Minato set up his tent again next to his companions as they did the same. 20 minutes after everything was ready, he turned his attention to them. "Shall we go see Tsuna?" he asked with a smile while the others nodded, heading to the area where Tent 4 was located. They walked through the busy camp as they reached the tent.
"What do you want, kids? You can't go in." Two Jonin guards immediately stopped them.
The children could hear the sounds of people crying and screaming inside, with many people issuing orders to others.
It seemed chaotic. "We want to talk to someone inside," Hanabi said. "Do you think this is an amusement park? There are people dying in there. We don't have time to be calling acquaintances."
"Go find something to do and don't disrupt the camp's operation," the man said sternly.
"But..."
Hanabi started to speak. After all, it was Tsunade who mentioned Tsuna, but Minato touched her shoulder.
"We better not get involved in this. We'll talk to her another time," Minato said, and Hanabi eventually nodded.
They were about to leave when a group of ninjas came running through the entrance and placed at least half a dozen ninjas on stretchers, laid out on the ground in front.
"They need urgent treatment.
They said this tent still has space." One of the men who brought the injured shouted immediately at the guards, while the injured themselves screamed in agony as they awaited treatment.
Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi stepped aside to avoid interfering with the situation.
"Yes, we'll speak with the supervisor," one of the Jonin guards replied and immediately went inside. A moment later, a dark-haired woman in white clothes came out with the Jonin, assessing the condition of the injured.
"They need urgent treatment. We must bring them inside.
But I need to check if they are poisoned. I need equipment here," she shouted toward the tent, as some medical shinobi came out to help her, bringing equipment, one of them being Tsuna herself, with blood-stained gloves. They quickly began checking the blood of those men while trying to hold them, which wasn't a pretty sight, with most of them having hemorrhages and missing body parts.
Minato watched tensely.
The war was a much more horrible scene than he could have imagined, and he kept seeing more atrocities coming to this place where the injured were treated, with people dying in large numbers every day. He saw Tsuna working while the woman in charge was giving orders and instructing her. When they started taking the injured inside, Tsuna turned to look around and was a bit surprised to see her old friends standing there when she wasn't even aware of their arrival at the camp.
"Tsuna, what are you doing standing there?"
"I need A+ blood for a transfusion," the woman shouted when she saw Tsuna standing still, and Tsunade's daughter quickly nodded, running back inside. She just looked at her friends while nodding her head without having a chance to greet them, stopping her gaze on Minato longer than any of the others, and entered a tent to assist with the emergency.
Minato saw that inside. "We better get out of here, we're just getting in the way," Minato said, while the other girls could only agree, following him. "I'll study more scrolls," Makoto said as they remained silent, wanting to keep their minds occupied with something. "Me too," Hanabi said. "I'll find something to do in the camp," Minato said, wanting to do something else.
At that moment, they passed through the camp and saw a ninja approaching in the middle of the place with a bunch of buckets in his hands.
"Hey, kids, I need some urgent help.
We need water, but I can't leave.
There's a river nearby, I need these buckets filled with water for Tent 6, can you help me?" The ninja saw them and asked.
Minato returned to the girls, "You can go back to the tents and study the scrolls in the meantime." "I'll help him," Minato offered, as he didn't have much to do at the moment and accepted to get to know the camp better.
"Just you?"
The ninja looked at him, seeing it was only him.
"Don't worry about it. I'll handle it."
"Now tell me where the nearest river is," he said.
It's in that area, 1 kilometer away.
Don't worry, this is the safest camp on the border, he advised, and Minato nodded, taking a scroll from his pocket and placing all the buckets inside it, surprising the Chunin, as only people with high knowledge of Fuinjutsu could do that, and Minato was too young for the ninja to recognize him as such. Minato stored the scroll and headed to the forest, jumping between the trees and soon finding the stream as the ninja had instructed. He took the buckets out of the scroll and started filling them with water.
I don't know why they asked me to do this. Couldn't a ninja with a water element do it? Minato wondered while finishing the buckets, but it didn't matter in the end, as he stored all the buckets back in the scroll. He looked at the forest and could feel several sentinels hidden around the camp. The ninja hadn't lied about this place being the most guarded, and there were even eyes on him, not that he was a threat or anything. Minato returned to the camp, and the Chunin was again surprised by Minato taking all the buckets out of his scroll. After thanking him, Minato looked around when he heard another voice asking for help. I need someone to take this to the Sentinel commander.
I can't leave now, I need someone, the medic shouted, looking for help as the camp was quite busy with almost no one free for extra tasks.
Minato shrugged, nodding, wanting to be useful, and went to the man.
He took the task and returned to the forest until he found the leader of the forest team in the northern part of the camp.
Thank you, Genin.
The ninja, thinking Minato was just an assistant like many others who came here, thanked him, and Minato nodded without any problems. After that, he returned to the camp, but before he got there, he thought he could help in a much better way. He crossed his fingers and created 10 shadow clones, which then spread throughout the camp, looking for tasks and easing the pressure on the place by doing many tasks with several Minatos at once. He kept doing this for the entire afternoon, while thinking of getting something to eat at the river and preparing for the night. He wasn't in the mood for soup, and the girls would certainly appreciate it. I need someone to take a scroll to the river. He heard that and approached, as it would be on his way while the clones continued doing simple tasks around the place. I can help you, Minato said while the medic looked at him stunned.
You? Didn't I give you a task 2 minutes ago? She demanded, thinking he was avoiding the task.
You gave the task to my clone, Minato said calmly while the woman looked at him suspiciously.
Are you going to give me the task or not?
Otherwise, I'll leave, Minato said with an annoyed tone, not wanting to waste time. Alright, I'll trust you. I hope you deliver this, it's very important, she said seriously, and Minato nodded, taking the scroll before heading to the forest. After delivering it, he went into the forest, while a clone passed by carrying water. Here I am, carrying water, and you're carrying a small scroll, the clone mocked.
As if it's that heavy, stop complaining, Minato said to himself and continued on his way. He passed by a clone chopping wood as well.
The clone saw him but didn't comment, and Minato continued jumping on the tree branches. After finally reaching the person he had to deliver the scroll to, he went to the river, catching fish with his hands or with a wooden spear he made after cutting some branches. With his skill, he had caught about 20 fish in less than 5 minutes and stored them to prepare later. You're there. A voice emerged, and Minato, already aware of the person's approach, looked calmly while storing the scroll with the fish.
How did you find me? I don't think you're a sensor to track me from that distance. Minato commented, while Tsuna gave a small smile.
It's not hard when the camp is infested with your clones.
You know you left some people confused there?
To find you, I asked the clones until one said they saw you coming this way, she said, crossing her arms.
How have you been?
I've seen bloody scenes since I came here, still trying to get used to it.
Minato admitted.
You get used to it better over time, but it wasn't easy at first even for me.
She said. Are you starting to learn medical ninjutsu and applying it? Minato asked.
She didn't answer immediately as she approached him. I'm learning.
I knew the basics but nothing compared to what I'm doing now. Dealing with people dying every day isn't easy.
She sighed, no longer seeming like the little girl under 10 years old he used to know at the academy.
War can change people, where's that grumbler I knew? Minato tried to lighten the mood, having to dodge Tsuna's punch in the next moment. Shut up.
She saw her punch have no effect, like all the ones she'd tried to land on him over the years, and just crossed her arms with a blush on her face.
Anyway, are you free? I'm thinking of cooking some fish for tonight.
We can talk better than with the other girls, he said, and Suna nodded.
Yes, my shift is over, and you know I wouldn't refuse your food,
she said with a small smile forming on her lips.
Let's go then. I want to know how things are in this war,
Minato said, wanting to talk to someone he trusted.
Yes, I also heard you did an important mission. I want to know the details,
she said, and they both started heading back to the camp. Suna had followed the original Minato because she wanted to stay with him, so they went towards the tent where they were staying. Meanwhile, in another place, at the border of the land of Earth, a ninja arrived at his camp, which looked similar to Konoha's, with people arriving injured while everyone kept the place running.
He approached the main tent, and the ninjas at the entrance let him in.
He found an elite jonin of the land of Earth village, who was the commander of that place.
Ketsuchi-sama,
the sand ninja said, kneeling as a sign of respect.
Did the mission fail?
Ketsuchi asked, looking at the ninja seriously.
Yes.
But something happened, and I have valuable information. The target appeared, the ninja said to Ketsuchi, who, despite being an elite jonin and still young, under 20 years old, was the son of the third Tsuchikage, Owanoki.
Chapter 106, Medical Camp 03. Third-person POV. Fire Country, Year 36. Are you sure?
Ketsuchi asked with intense eyes.
Yes, we found Jiraiya leading the logistics team for Konoha's medical camp.
Not only that, but a blonde-haired child appeared above us and surprised us with clones, taking down 2 of us before we could really attack the enemy. Only I escaped, with the others falling.
He spoke calmly. I see.
All right, you can go, Ketsuchi said, dismissing the man. He began writing some things on his scroll calmly before calling a ninja with his hand, Ketsuchi-sama.
Make copies of these orders and send them to all our camps.
Their priority is to kill this boy as soon as he is sighted, understood? Ketsuchi spoke in a serious tone, while the kneeling shinobi took the scroll and nodded before leaving. According to my father, you are a threat that must be eliminated at any cost, so it's a shame, boy, because you won't survive until the end of this war. Young Ketsuchi said as he looked at the pencil-drawn picture of Minato by the ninja who had returned alive from the land of fire. While Minato had no idea that a grand scheme was being devised by the land of Earth to eliminate him, he was sitting at this moment with Suna, Makoto, and Hanabi around a small campfire near the tents, preparing grilled fish for the girls. Here it is, he said as he began to distribute the meal, and the girls started serving themselves.
Great, I missed this. Suna exclaimed joyfully, seeming to revert to the personality Minato knew before finding her near the river. Eat well, Senju.
Because tomorrow we will fight, and you better be prepared, Makoto challenged. It was no surprise to Minato that as soon as the two saw each other, they started arguing and demanding a fight.
Do you think I need much to beat you? Suna murmured with fish in her mouth, while Hanabi sighed beside her.
Minato shrugged, already used to this kind of discussion.
Anyway,
Suna resumed speaking after eating the piece of fish.
I heard about the mission you guys did. I must admit, I'm envious.
You saved one of the most important men in the land of fire on an S-rank mission, and it was your first one. We managed to handle it by working together, Makoto admitted, while Hanabi nodded but felt a bit useless since she acted the least during the mission. Don't worry, when you master the wind jutsu, you will be a powerful kunoichi. Minato noticed her internal conflict and decided to speak softly beside her, hoping to cheer her up.
Yes,
she murmured with a slight blush from Minato's closeness.
How are things going? Are we winning or losing the war?
Minato wanted to understand, despite not having gathered much information while helping around the entire camp, and his clones also dissipated with almost no information. I'm not sure, but according to my mother, the other camps are trying to gain territory in the land of rain, while sending forces to the enemy borders as they are trying to do with us. I still remember the various explosions that happened in the first few days when I arrived, she said.
I still wonder if I will meet Nagato. Have his parents already been killed? Minato couldn't help but murmur internally. After all, he didn't know the real timeline of the events happening in the original work's flashbacks. Speaking of which, where are the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan?
I barely saw them here, she asked curiously, as they were powerful clans. My father is leading the clan to the north, where there is a higher concentration of Uchihas, Makoto commented. The Hyuga clan is in the east fighting against Kiri, but there are many of them scattered everywhere.
I don't think there would be few of them here, Hanabi commented.
I see, and where are you going? She asked.
We don't know, Minato commented.
We have to wait for the sensei's command, he said. I understand, it seems that soon we will part ways again, but I hope I don't have to treat any of you. It's horrible to see academy students who studied in other classes appearing injured, even dead.
Suna murmured, while the atmosphere grew somber.
We will do our part. I will ensure that my comrades and sensei do not get hurt in this war, Minato said seriously. He couldn't save everyone, nor could he make a significant difference in this war due to his current chakra quantity or stamina to handle everything alone, but he would ensure Makoto and Hanabi stayed safe. As always, a knight protecting damsels. Haha, Suna laughed at that in the end, changing the mood, and Minato felt a little embarrassed by it.
I'm just saying.
He tried to explain, seeing the situation he was in.
We know, Minato.
Stop provoking him, Senju. Makoto came to Minato's rescue.
I know, it's just that. She stopped laughing and seemed melancholic as she looked away.
Anyway, forget it. It's time for me to sleep. My mom might come to complain at any moment. Tomorrow I'll be waiting for you, Uchiha. Don't cry when I make you eat dirt, Suna said, trying to sound brave while Makoto clicked her tongue. I'll take her. I'm sure Tsunade would hit me if I let Suna walk around the camp at night, Minato said, standing up.
Suna didn't complain as Minato accompanied her to the main tent.
The camp had so many medical tents that it became enormous, so they walked for a while without hurry.
Is something wrong? Minato asked as Suna seemed to remain silent. Suna didn't respond as they continued walking through the camp.
She finally broke the silence, but not touching on the subject Minato had mentioned.
How is Kushina?
My mother talked about her, Suna said.
She's sad about Mito ending her life. She only has a few months left. I heard you'll be going to Konoha soon, Minato sighed and said. Yes, it will be the last time I see her. It's so bad to know that someone you knew is going to die. She murmured, and Minato nodded.
Even he felt the weight of Mito's impending death in his life, as she was part of his story.
Suna seemed hesitant about something but went back to being quiet.
Minato didn't say anything and continued walking with her, passing people walking through the corridor, looking for things here and there, sometimes someone being brought from the battlefield. After passing by someone screaming while dying, and medics trying to help him with medical chakra on his wounds, Suna decided to break the silence finally. You know, the first time I saw this chaos, I vomited so much that my mother had to help me and give me a speech. I still have slight tremors with what happens here. She spoke with a very emotional tone.
Minato didn't respond to her.
I realized that I need to help them, but it's so hard, seeing so many people dying, every day. I feel broken, she admitted with a fragmented voice. You're just a child. We shouldn't be here in the first place, Minato decided to say what he thought.
Konoha sent thousands of newly graduated children to war, and a shinobi's life doesn't usually last long.
Even so, we are still needed.
Suna said.
I wish you were here with me. I'm so envious of Makoto and Hanabi, she said with a smile, keeping her eyes closed. You know I'll be here if you need me too, Minato said.
I know.
But it's so bad, sometimes without support. I'll start helping my mother with the people infected with poison tomorrow, she spoke quietly as they arrived at the tent where the commander, Suna's mother, was.
Whom?
Minato was surprised, expecting Suna to say goodbye, but she hugged him in the end.
Sorry for this, but I just don't want to see you on those cots. Promise me you won't go to that place, that I won't see you there.
She demanded, looking sad. It must not be easy for a child to see deaths all day. Minato murmured and placed his hands on her back,
hugging her too. "It's okay, I promise that won't happen to me. I'll always come back, no matter where I go," Minato said and moved her back a bit as she wiped her small tears. "Take this, when you need me, put chakra into the seal, I'll know immediately." "Mito taught me how to make this," Minato said with a small smile, giving her an ordinary kunai with the Raijin seal +1 to detect chakra linked to Minato. "Yes, thank you," she murmured as she took the kunai. "How long are you two going to stand there dating?" A new voice caught their attention as Tsunade appeared in front of her tent with her arms crossed. "Yes," Tsunade said, embarrassed, as she left and returned to the tent. "See you tomorrow, Minato." She said goodbye, approaching her mother with the kunai in hand. Minato nodded and said goodbye to her and Tsunade, returning to his tent again. "Tsunade told me that her daughter was quite affected by the things happening here." Jiraiya's voice appeared beside Minato. Minato didn't say anything. "You'll have some time. We're staying here for 3 days before moving to a new camp, so make the most of it," he said, and Minato nodded, finally returning to his tent to rest, reading a few ninjutsu book before falling asleep. The next day, he woke up with his colleagues and decided to help again by creating many shadow clones that started spreading throughout the camp while keeping some to study Mito's scrolls. Meanwhile, far away, on the other side of the country, Danzu was standing in his office when a root ninja entered and kneeled before him. "Give it to me," he said, taking the scroll from the shinobi and starting to read it. "The boy is in the west then," he commented, but his gaze soon shifted downwards, making the man smile slightly at the information there. "It seems that woman will die soon," he said while the shinobi remained silent, knowing Danzu was not speaking to him. "And when that happens, we will destroy the remaining influence the Senju family has in Konoha and eliminate all those who hinder Konoha." His gaze turned outward as he saw some Uzumaki walking in the distance. "Once we get rid of all those, I will guide Konoha with total control and dominate all the elemental nations, reaching the level Konoha was born to have," Danzu said, holding many plans for the coming months, which would begin as soon as Mito died. "I must not forget about the new Jinchuriki. I will control the Bijou and defeat all the nations by commanding the nine-tailed fox," he murmured in a dark tone. Meanwhile, in the northern region, "Commander Tsukumo, we have some enemy activities in the north. Should we prepare for an attack?" a jonin asked his commander. "TSK, those guys want another attack? Any movement from the Raikage?" he asked. "No, he's not at the border according to our sensors," he informed. "All right, but prepare to fight. I heard a tracking team with 3 Hyuga arrived. Put them in the field to watch the border," he issued the order, and the ninja disappeared from his sight. Chapter 107 Medical Camp 04. Third-person POV. Border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain, Year 36. The day passed with Minato helping everyone who needed it in the camp with several clones, just like the previous day, beginning to get used to the system and the constant arrival of wounded to be treated. It didn't take long before Minato, busy organizing medical supplies, noticed some curious looks and whispers among the shinobi in the camp. It was hard to ignore the presence of several Minatos walking around, each fulfilling a different task. While one clone helped carry the wounded, another delivered messages, brought water to the camp, and even helped in the kitchen distributing food. "Minato-san, are you everywhere at once?" A young chunin whom Minato had already done some tasks with looked surprised at the boy who had passed by not 2 minutes ago, wearing an expression of confusion. "Just clones. Do you need something?" Minato said. "Clones?" The chunin was surprised by this. After all, while the clone technique could multiply the amount of work being done, Minato was special for being able to make clones that could last so long without it affecting him. He only knew a few people with such an ability, like Kushina, Suna, and the Hokage's apprentices with their enormous chakra reserves. Not even Kakashi could make a clone and sustain it for long. "It's amazing. You must be really strong to maintain so many clones," commented a medical ninja while adjusting the bandages of a nearby patient, overhearing the conversation between the two. "It's nothing special," Minato responded modestly. "I'm just helping in the way I can," he said, before asking something he wanted to know. Do you know where Tsunade's daughter is? Suna-sama?
She's in the special tent today, where the people with the poison from the sand village are being treated.
The medic said, and Minato nodded.
Time passed and Minato went to lunch with his team, dispersing all his clones and joining Team 7.
How are things going? Minato asked. It's hard to mold the chakra, Hanabi commented.
Yes, unfortunately, this is a slow process. You could increase your understanding of nature chakra if you could produce shadow clones, Minato said, sitting next to Makoto while serving himself food made by the camp. We don't have your chakra reserves.
Makoto murmured. I understand, even so, I have faith that you will learn. Hanabi, have you started the leaf-cutting training? Minato asked.
Not yet, I'm trying to reach the chakra frequency enough to mold the nature chakra, but it's still hard even with my Byakugan, she commented. They continued eating quietly while Minato went out again and created clones to help in the camp, then decided to train a bit in the forest, trying to improve his chakra control. Even though he had the chakra control to launch his Raisin Shuriken, he was still below people like Tsunade Senju, Hashirama Senju, and even Naruto, who could synchronize the fox's chakra with thousands of people, each with different chakra types. He remained focused in a corner while some patrols looked at him surprised but ignored him, seeing only a boy meditating.
Minato was only interrupted from his meditation by Tsuna coming to him. Found you. She smiled. Did you ask a clone?
Minato asked, raising an eyebrow while giving a small smile. You're too close to the camp for me not to detect your chakra, she said, sticking out her tongue.
Well, let's go back to the camp.
There are many fish I stored yesterday, he said as they returned to the tent from yesterday while the day began to lose its light and Minato dispersed all his clones.
They ate together again while two people joined the four.
This smells really good. Jiraiya's voice came as he was accompanied by Tsunade.
Mother, Tsuna greeted her.
I see you're with your group, Tsunade said in a neutral tone, just nodding.
Let's see if the kids' food is any good, she said, serving herself. Do you already know where you and your team are going?
Tsunade started a conversation with Jiraiya while the six of them stayed in that corner eating.
We're going to the north side.
After all, Orochimaru is handling the south and you're in the center, so it's natural for me to go north, Jiraiya commented. You'll be in direct conflict with the Stone Village, Tsunade raised an eyebrow, knowing that Jiraiya had discussed the mission with her earlier and mentioned his little problem with that country after letting one of their ninjas escape.
Yes, but it's better this way. We'll know who we're dealing with.
Jiraiya knew there was no point in avoiding conflict with the Stone Village. They would turn to the Sand Village, leaving Minato with two countries hunting him.
Minato and the girls remained silent as they finished eating, then went to sleep shortly after, with Tsunade taking Tsuna a little later.
The next day, Minato continued his routine, while Makoto and Hanabi took advantage of this time to at least learn to put their chakra at the right frequency before starting the real training with elemental change.
Let's go, Tsunade said to her daughter after breakfast.
It was time for them to work, and the girl nodded and followed her mother. They headed to the special tent treating the poisoned with many wounded. Upon entering, Tsuna felt a knot in her stomach at the sight of hundreds of people lying on improvised cots, all with yellow spots spread across their bodies, evidence of the Sand Village's deadly poison. They screamed, and like yesterday, she witnessed at least a dozen of those ninjas, regardless of rank, being carried out wrapped in special bags to be cremated. She trembled slightly, still not used to this scene, even though she seemed fine to her friends, but felt terrible inside, as she had confided to Minato on his first day here.
Stay strong, Tsuna. They need us. Your father is helping at one of the camps, as is your uncle.
We must find a way to cure this poison because it could be one of them on these cots at any moment, Tsunade said in a stern tone.
Yes.
Tsuna commented, not expecting to see any of them or Minato here, so she wanted to help her mother as best she could.
But it's still terrible, she murmured at the end. Stop whining and let's get started. Bring the antidote I created yesterday. Let's see if staying at room temperature for 8 hours made it ready.
She instructed her daughter while Tsuna went to one of the cabinets and grabbed a green vial. It looks ready, she commented, bringing it to her mother.
Let's see if this works,
Tsunade said and began putting on protective gear like all the other medics attending to the cots, and Suna followed suit. They walked through the area, while people greeted them.
Tsunade went to a special room with terminal cases. Tsunade-sama.
A medic greeted her as soon as she entered.
Which is the worst case? Let's test this antidote,
she asked, and the woman nodded, pointing to a man with several spots on his body, half of his face yellow, screaming as he experienced his final moments. Tsunade approached and forced the man, who was writhing in pain, to drink the vial she had brought. Suna watched from a distance as her mother made the man drink, and he writhed for another 10 seconds before suddenly stopping, while the spots began to disappear.
Tsunade-sama, it's working,
the medic exclaimed hopefully, but suddenly the spots that had vanished reappeared, and the man began to feel even more pain, screaming even louder until he stopped 5 seconds later.
Tsunade-sama, he's dead, the medic commented disheartened.
Yes.
It seems it wasn't successful,
Tsunade commented, frustration evident in her voice as she resisted the urge to punch something.
Well, let's get back to work. I want more blood collected from the patients and even from this man. I need to see what went wrong, she instructed as people began to move.
Suna, despite still being shaken, nodded and began working, helping her mother in her laboratory and assisting in the special tent. Tsunade walked over to an improvised work table where various vials, herbs, and medical tools were scattered. She started analyzing blood samples from the patients as her mother had requested, trying to decipher the composition of the poison.
Let's start with the most severe cases, Tsunade instructed. Suna, help me apply these experimental antidotes to the poisoned blood.
We need to monitor the reaction of the clots and cells.
Suna nodded, doing as her mother asked while conducting an analysis and reporting, as Tsunade continued applying new forms of antidote.
She maintained this routine, returning to the tent to collect more blood or assist, and the day finally ended with her sighing after seeing another dozen people die. She walked out after changing and made a hand sign, closing her eyes and finding Minato in the forest, at least the real one, because there were clones of him scattered everywhere, occasionally seen running here and there. She approached, and they started talking again, with Suna eventually sharing what she was experiencing working with her mother.
That's tough. But with this, I'm sure you will save thousands of lives, Minato commented.
He knew that Chio had mentioned the ongoing war between her and Tsunade, with the granddaughter of the first Hokage always finding the cure, as he hoped she would now.
Yes. Suna appreciated Minato's support, and they returned to the camp to eat as the day ended once again. Another day had passed, and Minato was helping and meeting all his colleagues at night. It was finally Team 7's last day at the camp before heading to the northern region. Suna and Mikoto decided to fight this time. After all, they hadn't fought as they had planned on the second day and ended up having a winner-take-all battle. There was almost confusion with the patrol as fire and water jutsus were launched in the middle of the forest while they fought. The next day, the time for them to leave finally came as they dismantled their tents and started to prepare.
Good luck. I hope I don't see you here as patients, neither you nor your students. Tsunade came to bid Jiraiya farewell personally.
You know we'll be fine.
We need to invade the rain country now, but we'll deal with that soon, Jiraiya said, as the country was in chaos at the start of the war.
Tsunade just nodded. Suna also looked directly at her colleagues.
I hope to see you all soon, she said.
We'll be fine, and yes, we will meet again soon, Minato commented, while the other girls nodded.
Let's go, Jiraiya called, and he jumped into the air. Stay safe too, Minato exchanged a final look with Suna before they jumped north, following Jiraiya. Good luck, was her thought as she watched them disappear into the forest. Let's go, we still have a lot of work to do. Tsunade pulled her daughter out of her thoughts, and she nodded quickly. Yes. And so, they returned to the laboratory.
Chapter 108 Espionage Camp 01. Third-person POV.
Border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain, Year 36. Team 7 departed, crossing the border and heading north for the next 2 hours. No attacks came this time, and they arrived at the camp after a while. "We've arrived," Jiraiya commented as they landed in front of the camp, having passed through the sentries, who were much fewer in number than those at the medical camp for a good reason.
Commander Jiraiya. Some Jonins appeared to greet Jiraiya as he arrived. Minato observed the camp.
It wasn't very large but had about 600 ninjas. There were at least 5 camps handling the northern region, fighting directly against the land of Earth. "Now the camp will be in your hands, Lord Jiraiya," the Jonin continued, speaking to Jiraiya as he handed over the camp's leadership to him with orders from the Hokage. After all, his 3 students would assume leadership positions among the 12 camps.
"Alright, I want to speak with all the leaders in the main tent. I also need all the reports on the camp's situation," Jiraiya requested and then turned to his students.
"Listen, you can settle in the camp, prepare to stay here for months.
In the meantime, I'll assess the situation and call for you later, understood?"
he said, and the 3 nodded as Jiraiya informed them where they would be staying afterward. Meanwhile, Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi went to set up their tents along with the others in the camp. The camp was still a bit hectic, with people running here and there, ninjas of all ranks doing their tasks, coming and going.
"I'm going to train a bit," Hanabi said, and Minato nodded.
"Alright, I'll get some water to keep here," Minato said, wanting to gather some resources beside the tent, and headed to the center of the camp. He moved through the crowd, passing by some people, until he finally saw someone he recognized. They stopped upon seeing each other and stood there, staring at one another, while the other person ate some kind of snack from a package. Minato looked at the person he knew very well, none other than Shuza Akimichi, who was calmly eating a snack and staring at Minato. Minato stared at him. Shuza also remained silent, staring back. After about 5 seconds, with Shuza still eating his snack, Minato decided to speak. "So, is your team here?" he asked calmly. "Yes, and you're here too," Shuza replied while still eating. "If it isn't Minato Namikaze." Shikaku Nara approached with Inoichi Yamanaka by his side a moment later. They were carrying some supplies in their hands, heading somewhere in the camp. "How are you guys?" Minato asked them, merely glancing at the supplies. "We're fine, swamped with work, which is a drag," Shikaku immediately complained. "I heard you stayed in Konoha for a while, so you finally decided to come to the war," Inoichi inquired. "Yes, we arrived at the border a few days ago, but we completed a mission before that," Minato replied, though they were unaware of the S-rank mission he had completed. "And are you guys stationed at this camp?" Minato asked, changing the subject. "No, we're at the nearby camp. We're here to deliver supplies. We usually do these temporary tasks, you should get used to it too," Nara said, and Minato nodded. "Well, it's good to see you guys." "I'll go grab my things," Minato said and continued walking, taking potable water to the tents where his team was stationed. Minato returned, and the girls had already arrived. They chatted for a while until a Jonin approached them and requested they meet with Jiraiya-sensei in the main tent. The 3 headed to the location, entering and finding Jiraiya alone, looking at a map that seemed to be of the border, with several points indicating the camp. "Well, you're here," he began, looking at the kids. "As you know, I'll be taking over the leadership of this place and won't be able to give much attention to you as my students. But since we'll be here for a while, I need you to help with the camp's basic tasks for now. Take turns and choose a period to train. During the other 2, you'll handle other activities around the camp and assist me when I request," Jiraiya said, and the 3 nodded. "Now let me explain a bit about this place." Jiraiya began to outline the tasks the 3 would undertake while they were there and how some things worked, including routes they could transit without being mistaken for enemies and the schedules of the entire camp. This was an offensive and espionage-type camp, with the latter being more of a focus with Jiraiya taking charge. The ninjas here were responsible for delivering vital war information to all the other camps. "Are we going to do espionage missions?" Makoto asked, a bit dissatisfied in her tone. As an Uchiha, she preferred direct attacks. "Yes, but you are just children. We won't put you on the front line," Jiraiya said. After all, no genin was doing that, as they were only involved in some activities.
Children who have already completed an S-rank mission, Hanabi murmured quietly. You are in too much of a hurry. Enjoy your time here, the front line is total chaos.
It's not a place for inexperienced people, so I'll ask you to wait a bit, Jiraiya spoke in a calm tone.
Jiraiya-sensei, Minato called.
Yes?
He looked at his student. How is the supply of explosive tags? He asked.
Explosive tags. We're at war, so the demand is very high. I believe the only side of the war that isn't short of them is the East because they have the Uzumaki clan supplying them constantly.
Jiraiya explained. If I produce them in the camp, will Konoha pay me? Minato asked.
It was a good opportunity to raise funds, and he had the advantage of using clones to speed up production. I can arrange that if you sell them at the wholesale price Konoha usually pays. I'm sure my sensei will agree to that, Jiraiya said, and Minato nodded, satisfied. After that, the three left the main tent, getting more familiar with the place after a bit more conversation. They didn't do anything for the rest of the day, with Jiraiya asking them to familiarize themselves with the area. They spent the day together, talking while delivering messages to sentinels here and there at Jiraiya's request. The next day, the three decided to help out more in the camp. Minato, already accustomed to the routine of the medical camp, quickly created clones and began distributing them around the area, performing activities very similar to those he had done at the previous camp, such as fetching water and organizing the camp stocks and supplies. At noon, Jiraiya approached the group as they stopped to eat and joined them. I will be going to the northern border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain to personally check on the situation there. I want you to stay here for now, there's no need to put you on the battlefield yet, as we discussed yesterday. So help out as much as you can in the camp, he requested. Yes. The three nodded, and Jiraiya left shortly afterward with several teams of Jonins. The routine continued, and Jiraiya did not return that day, with someone else leading the camp in his place, like the previous commander, who was temporary. Minato used his free time in the afternoon to meditate and improve his chakra control. Unfortunately, he was wary of training his fruit abilities in front of so many eyes, so his training was more discreet, limited to chakra manipulation and learning taijutsu with weights in a marine style. He also took the opportunity to start learning the set of jutsus that the Hokage had given him, leaving his clones to help around the camp. He approached a tent where a kunoichi was handling the records. Hello, Minato greeted the woman who was writing. She stopped to look at the child she didn't recognize, as Jiraiya himself had registered the names of Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi. Yes, can I help you? She asked. Yes, I want to know if there's anyone among the registered names on this side of the country, Minato requested. I don't have the names of all the people on this border. We only register the names of those who come to this camp, and I can't give them to an unknown child. I need a signed order from a superior, she said with a stern tone, though Minato still thanked her, nodding. At least she responded. I'll have to wait for sensei to return. Minato murmured and left to continue his activities. The days began to fly by, and a week had passed since Jiraiya had left until he finally returned with the group of ninjas. He didn't call them immediately as the three continued with their activities and training. It was after some time that Jiraiya summoned them to the tent, asking how things were going. When are we going to the front lines? Minato was the one who asked. Not yet, kid, but I want you to train enough to be prepared, he said, despite the children's insistence. Let's see how you are at this moment, he said, and Team 7 left the camp as Jiraiya took them to train in the forest for a while. At the end, Minato asked Jiraiya for permission to look at the records, and Jiraiya agreed. Minato returned to that tent with Jiraiya's authorization, and the kunoichi had no choice but to let him look at the papers. Minato had some difficulty with this, as the names were in order of arrival and not alphabetically. It took him a while, even creating 5 clones, until he found it. Might do way. So you passed through here, but where did you go? He murmured and searched a bit more until he found the team he had joined. Minato went to Jiraiya again and asked about Dewey's team. This team. It says here they went to the northern border. They stopped at this camp because it was the closest to the north before departing, Jiraiya informed, and Minato was a bit surprised. He knew that Due had gone to this border but could not predict that he would be transferred to another battlefield. "This is bad, I brought books for him about anatomy that I had bought in the last few weeks," he murmured, wanting to help Due and talk about his wife being hospitalized in Konoha. "All right, sensei. I'm going, thank you." Minato said goodbye and started to leave. "Minato, I received a response about your proposal with explosive tags. The Hokage is interested in buying a large quantity if you can produce them. This will help a lot at the border with the Land of Rain," Jiraiya requested, and Minato nodded and left. "At least I'll profit from something in this war and could save the money needed to buy my own residence, founding the Namikaze clan in Konoha," he thought and went out to start his endeavor. Chapter 109 Espionage Camp 02. Third-person POV. Border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain, Year 36. Minato continued spending his days in the camp without needing to undertake any missions outside of it. He just kept helping around the place as much as he could and trained with his companions. The only new thing that emerged after he talked to Jiraiya was that he started making thousands of explosive tags with several clones. Many people in the camp could see at least 50 Minatos in a space next to the camp, with various scrolls scattered on the ground while Minato continued drawing explosive tags. He had brought a large supply of chakra ink that he had stored in his scroll. "Hey, kid. Can you supply some extra scrolls? I'll pay you," the ninjas soon started asking him, as Minato was making explosive tags for the village's stock, and they wanted to have extras with them. After all, it was worth spending a little money to increase their chances of survival. Minato accepted the request since it paid more money than the village did. His routine was like this in the past few days while Makoto and Hanabi helped as much as they could and trained. Today in particular, Minato went to the forest with Hanabi, who asked for some tips while trying to cut a leaf with the palm of her hand, still trying to transform her chakra into the wind element, but finding it very difficult as he could see, even though she had a powerful tool to assist her, the Byakugan. "It's hard to maintain the chakra and try to make it cut at the same time," Hanabi complained to Minato, making even more effort with her hands. "Concentrate and visualize, but don't rush, after all, your brain needs to get used to the new chakra concentration," Minato said, knowing it would take a long time for people who didn't have an affinity. Most ninjas gave up on learning a new nature and ended up focusing on the ones they already had natural talent for, as this could turn them into elemental specialists, much more powerful than ninjas with 2 elements of mediocre mastery, as they would have to divide their lifetime learning to use 2 elements, which, even with affinity, was still difficult. She continued for a while until she gave up. Minato still gave some more tips he had learned over the years, but without shadow clones, Hanabi had a long way to go. "Anyway, let's train some taijutsu. You and Makoto can't just keep studying new elements without training your strong points," he requested, and she nodded. They both started a taijutsu fight right afterward, a fight that Minato could have easily won, but he focused on keeping it friendly and helping his companion. They had spent the entire afternoon together and ended up sitting in front of a lake after the training while Minato took something out of his scroll to eat. Ninjas kept passing over them the entire time while they focused on moving along the border. "Do you think I'll master the wind element soon?" Hanabi suddenly asked while looking at the river's current. "I don't think it will be quick, Hanabi," Minato said in a serious tone, as he wouldn't give false hope to his friend. Hanabi didn't say anything but seemed disheartened by this, wanting to become stronger. "But don't worry. I'm sure you'll be the strongest among the Hyugas once you achieve that," he said in the end while she looked at him a little surprised by the statement. Minato then decided to continue his thoughts. "You know, Hanabi. When you master the wind element, you could try combat with a bow and arrow. Have you ever thought about using that? Imagine what kind of kunoichi you will become once you can shoot from kilometers away with a fatal shot," he said, and Hanabi, although surprised by that, nodded after thinking for a while. "My clan would never allow something like that. They would see me as a disgrace," she said quietly. "Then tell me, Hanabi, you want to have powerful long-distance attacks, but name a Hyuga who is good at it," he asked, looking at her seriously. I don't know," she admitted. "Then be the first." I'm sure you'll have great success on your ninja path," he said in the end with a small smile, believing it was a waste that the Hyugas didn't have attacks that could use their Byakugan more efficiently. After that, Minato and Hanabi returned to the camp. They met Makoto and Jiraiya and ended up having dinner together that night, something that had become rare due to the sensei's absence while taking care of things in the camp. The days passed as Minato stayed with his team for a month, practically remaining in the camp, helping in training. Everyone was already familiar with the boy who was constantly seen multiplied, and rumors of his deeds also began to circulate among the Jonins. After all, Minato had defeated a group of invaders in the village and provided great assistance in rescuing the daimyo, even though they believed Jiraiya had done more in that last event. "I need you to take this." "I know you all are bored," Jiraiya said in the main tent, looking at his students who had been stuck in the camp for over a month. "Are we going to have a mission outside?" Minato asked with some hope. "No. At least not an official mission. So I'm assigning some tasks. We need supplies while the fights seem to be more concentrated in the center, with the Stone Village and Sand Village forces meeting. They also targeted the medical camp," Jiraiya explained. "All right." It wasn't an official mission, but at least it was something to break the camp routine. The next morning, the trio prepared for the journey. While they met with other children in front of the camp, all genins doing the same tasks in the camp. "Minato, are you also planning to gather supplies?" a boy shouted as soon as he saw Minato arriving. This boy was a year older than Minato but seemed to behave like a younger brother to him. After all, he had declared himself a big fan of Minato, as many knew of Minato's reputation as the #1 rookie. "Hello Bake," Minato greeted the boy. "This is so exciting. I hope we can face some ninjas on this trip and become heroes," he exclaimed excitedly while Minato scratched his head, not knowing how to respond. "Hey, kids! Stop chatting and let's start the task." A Jonin approached the group and spoke to them in a stern tone. Everyone gathered around after that. "Here is the map of the camps you need to go to. Pick up the supplies and deliver them to the requested camp, otherwise, return to this camp with the scroll." "Understood?" he said, and the genins nodded. "You may go," he announced, and the genins began to spread out, with Minato heading to Camp 9, near the medical camp. They started jumping between the trees, advancing along the border while Team 7 was surrounded by other genins. "Do you think we will go to the front lines soon?" Bake exclaimed beside Minato, asking him. "I don't know, the older ninjas are taking care of all that," Minato replied. "I want to fight someone and beat them. I want to do my part for Konoha." Despite the horrors of the war, seeing numerous soldiers returning injured and dying in the camp every week, the boy still seemed to have a better attitude than his peers. After all the children were somewhat traumatized by it. After a few hours, passing numerous ninjas patrolling the area, they finally arrived at the camp on the map. "You finally arrived," said an adult coming to greet them. "Here is the order." Minato approached him and handed over the scroll. "Great, come with me. A stock from Konoha has just arrived," he said, and they went to the storage area. They went to get supplies and filled the scrolls before putting them in their backpacks. Starting to organize themselves to go to the medical camp the next day, they set up some tents. While Bake stayed with Minato, chatting away, with only Makoto and Hanabi silently by his side, familiar faces appeared. It was none other than Jiraiya's team, who had arrived at Camp 12. "Minato is here, which means I can finally eat his food," Chuza exclaimed, as the last time he saw him, he had to leave. "Alright, let's prepare something," Minato said, and Shikaku Nara and Inoichi Yamanaka joined as well. They ate and talked that night. The next day, they left for Camp 7, which was Tsunade's, carrying supplies from this camp to the medical camp. They arrived at the place, and it was the same chaos as always, with injured people arriving constantly. They were once again greeted by an adult. After organizing things, Team 7 was surprised by Tsunade approaching them. "It's been over a month, how are things?" she asked with a look of concern. "Nothing much, we haven't even left the camp yet," Makoto commented, dissatisfied.
That's good. I don't want to see any of you here injured, she said sincerely. How are you dealing with the poison?
I've seen a lot of people arriving in that state here, Minato asked, and Tsunade shook her head. Unfortunately, we haven't found a cure, but my mother has started to discover its effects and created a method that delays the poison's progression. Deaths have decreased, but they are still happening, she admitted with a bit of sadness. They continued talking for a bit, and finally, it was time for them to leave.
Let's go, Minato said, and the two other girls nodded, saying goodbye to Tsunade.
Minato, I will be returning to Konoha in a few weeks, so I won't be around for a while. Just take care of yourself and look after the two as well,
Tsunade said, and Minato nodded. Do you think I can't take care of myself, Senju? Makoto responded more as a challenge than anything else to Tsunade. TSK. Good luck,
she said in the end, and they headed to Camp 12, arriving there a few hours later. Bake was still glued to Minato, talking about anything or asking for training tips, and what saved him was a Jonin approaching them. Commander Jiraiya is requesting your presence in the main tent, he said, and the three nodded, separating from the other genins.
You're back, that's good, Jiraiya said. Tell us that you now have some kind of mission and we won't have to stay here for another month. Minato spoke, hoping to do something different in the war where he could be more useful. I'm glad you brought that up. There's something we need to do.
I'll be heading to the front tomorrow, and you will accompany me.
What do you think?
Jiraiya smiled. That sounds interesting, Minato said, and his companions agreed. Tomorrow, I will teach you how to be good spies and my techniques, so be prepared because we will be entering the war zone, Jiraiya said, and the three nodded, finally expecting to be more useful as they headed to the Land of Rain.
Chapter 110 Infiltration Mission 01. Third-person POV.
Border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rain, Year 36. Minato went to his tent with his companions as they prepared for their first field mission.
The next day, they dressed differently than usual.
After all, as it was a spying mission, they had to wear more discreet clothes, something darker than what Makoto usually wore. Minato also had storage seals wrapped around his wrists, something Sasuke had in Shippuden.
It was very practical to pull his kunais and other weapons from there.
He met Jiraiya, Makoto, and Hanabi at the edge of the camp before sunrise, while darkness still covered everything, but even so, the camp was quite bustling as always with the changing of the guard shifts and some people arriving with new reports.
Jiraiya looked at each of them, with a serious face as he assessed each one. It's good to see you here. I hope you're ready. We'll meet a team at the edge of the border and enter the Land of Rain to see the situation on the ground.
Remember, you have to stay alert, after all, we'll be in the middle of the battlefield, he warned as the three nodded. Jiraiya then shot off towards the trees while the three followed him, heading west.
It was after 2 hours of travel that the weather began to change above them. So this is the Land of Rain?
Hanabi asked curiously, looking at the sky which no longer looked like the clean sun of the morning before, but rather enveloped the forest in dark shadows and becoming even darker as they continued to advance. The same thing happened with Minato, feeling sentries around the place, however, much less than in the main parts of the camp. Jiraiya stopped for a moment while the three just followed him, making the same movement. A shinobi with a mask appeared in front of Jiraiya.
It was a messenger, as he handed the scroll to him before disappearing, and Jiraiya opened and read it. An ambush here? Makoto asked, surprised by this. It seems they do reconnaissance and intelligence work, there's a lot of them at all the camps.
Minato spoke, after all, he could feel through his haki many of them, but almost no one who was not a sentry could see them, after all, they worked hidden and by the shadows.
Well, this is interesting. It looks like we already have an important task here.
Jiraiya murmured and looked at the three students. Now follow me, he requested, and they both resumed their path until there was no more sun, just shadows, and clouds heavy with rain.
There's rain everywhere,
Makoto commented as they saw lines of water falling from the sky in the distance, while they too entered the place, stepping into a space just of rain. It's usually not like this, but when there are heavy clouds, it rains all day, Jiraiya said, since this country seemed to never have a sun in the sky or even clear weather.
They continued until they reached an outpost, much smaller than the previous camps. There were at least about 150 ninjas there, with some tents keeping watch at the edge of the border. As Jiraiya approached, he was greeted by the Jonins coming up to greet him. "Commander Jiraiya, welcome." A man with a Jonin vest and some scars on his face greeted him. Some seemed quite recent, as Minato could tell. "You brought children," he looked with a grimace, since Genins were not involved in the front lines. "These are my students, so don't worry about that. After all, their safety is under my responsibility," Jiraiya said, and the man nodded, not touching on the subject anymore. "Well, come with me. After all, I need a more complete report than what I received by the Ambu." "Let's go to the main tent," Jiraiya said, while the ninjas greeted him quickly as they entered. He looked at the map on the table and the Jonins there. "How is the situation?" Jiraiya asked. "The same. We still suffer attacks. However, we noticed one thing in the reports." The ninja with the scars on his face spoke with a serious tone. "Continue," Jiraiya prompted, since the shinobi had stopped as the Genins were observing everything attentively in the room, but Jiraiya didn't mind that. The ninja nodded and continued, "Well, the forces of the Land of Earth are more aggressive than ever. We've heard some reports from the southern country, but nothing compared to what's happening here in the north. It started over a month ago." "Yes, I read about that in the general reports," Jiraiya spoke, nodding. "It was quite strange. After all, those ninjas were trying to enter the border of the Land of Fire even more than before." "But it's strange, Commander Jiraiya. It's as if our enemies from the Stone Village are looking for something here. They are trying to breach the Land of Fire's border by any means. We are suffering more attacks than at the start of the war, even though they are losing with this kind of attack," he said. "After all, such an attack generated more loss of resources than an advantage in itself." Jiraiya seemed thoughtful, even looking at Minato for a moment, but he did not believe that it could be him the reason for this. "Well, until we find out, we will stop them in any way. So, hold the position," he said while gesturing to reinforce this area. "Note," he spoke and changed the subject. "Now I would like to know more about the investigation I received from the Ambu messenger a short while ago." He requested. "Commander Jiraiya, as you know, our intelligence discovered some reports coming from the south to deliver to your allies in the north, the Stone Ninjas. There might also be some resources with an incredible amount of explosive tags and other much worse things." The shinobi explained and had a somber tone for the last words. "So these bastards wanted to pass poison to the north," Jiraiya murmured with a bit of anger. After all, although the camp that took care of the infected people was in the center of the border, Orochimaru's camp and others in the south were the ones suffering from the attacks with the dispute with the Sand Ninjas. Jiraiya began to think about the scenario. Probably, they were carrying this type of poison to use on the allied country's forces against us, overloading the medical camp as a strategy to find an opening in Konoha's forces. "This is quite bad," Jiraiya murmured. "Jiraiya-sensei." Minato suddenly spoke, gaining the attention of the ninjas in the tent. "Speak, boy." Jiraiya asked, not getting angry at the boy for interrupting his conversation with the Jonins. "They wouldn't just send a quantity of poison, right? Is there a possibility they would send the recipe? Wouldn't that help us speed up the process of finding a cure?" Minato spoke. "After all, that would greatly help Tsunade, knowing how the substance was made." "Well, you are correct, and I'm sure Tsunade would love to see the formula. Maybe this mission is both a curse and a blessing. It all depends if we can intercept this team coming from the south." Jiraiya spoke while the ninjas had a serious look at him. "I'm glad I came here, because I will lead this mission with my students and other squads," he announced while the shinobi looked at the children who seemed to have neutral looks and then nodded. "I want a group of 30 ninjas specialized in infiltration to accompany us. We need to penetrate this country and find out what route the Sand Ninjas are using inside it." Jiraiya spoke and all the ninjas began to leave the tent. Jiraiya looked at his student before continuing. "You are already ready. We will stay here in this camp until our companions are ready. Soon, we will depart for the Land of Rain," Jiraiya spoke. "Now I will talk a little more with the Jonins." Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi nodded, leaving the tent, while the heavy rain soon hit them outside. Minato paid closer attention to the camp, Although he had already noticed the size and number of people here, he noticed other things like the ninjas walking back and forth not caring about the rain or even the mud made by thousands of footsteps being made on that wet soil every day. It should already be mid-morning, but everything was dark and gloomy. "How far do you think we are from the land of rain?" Makoto asked while Hanabi opened her Byakugan out of curiosity. "I believe we are a kilometer away from the place," Hanabi responded, looking to the east. "We might stay a long time in this camp. It would have been better to continue in the tent." Makoto couldn't help complaining as the rain fell on them all the time. They spent some time in the camp while Minato looked at the rainy sky, wondering if this country really never had sun. After that, Jiraiya got organized and brought some masks for them. "Take these. We are leaving now. Put on your hoods and don't take them off at all while we enter that country," Jiraiya instructed as they picked up masks. "It looks like we're a bunch of mysterious ninjas now," Makoto commented with a small smile. "I feel almost like an ambu like this." Minato spoke, not failing to think about his military career. He might join the ambu in the future. It would be an interesting experience to work some time in those forces. After all, Minato didn't consider himself a good spy. He trained to blow things up and be highly destructive. After that, all three got themselves sorted. Some random masks were chosen. "And I thought we were going to wear frog masks," Hanabi commented, though it would be quite obvious to the enemy. "Anyway, let's go," Minato said, and the three began to head towards the exit of the camp. There were several ninjas while Jiraiya was giving some more instructions, all of them wearing the same uniform, with dark capes and hooded masks. "Remember, we will follow in different teams as we enter the country and try to gather information. If possible, avoid direct confrontations and blend in with the population," Jiraiya instructed, his gaze fixed to the west. "The primary mission is to understand the enemy's movements and intercept any communication or resource coming to the north," he said. All the ninjas nodded. "Now we need to be even more discreet entering the country, so keep to the shadows and avoid any ninja, understand?" he asked. Once again, everyone just nodded and silently, "Now let's go," he said, and all the ninjas departed the next moment, while Jiraiya and his team followed a route as everyone split into groups of 2, 3, and 4 people in other teams. They swiftly passed through places with difficult visibility while Minato could even feel the other teams separated, keeping a low profile as they passed through the forest. It didn't take long to finally feel that they were in the land of rain. The team successfully continued their infiltration. Meanwhile, in another part of the land of rain, a boy looked at the rain falling on his window. There was no rain inside his house, while the door opened and a woman with red hair entered. "Stop looking out the window," she requested. "But Mom, why is everyone leaving and we're staying here? Isn't it dangerous?" the boy asked with some fear in his voice. "My boy, your father believes that we will be safer here inside. There's only hunger and death outside. Everything will be all right," she tried to calm her son. "I know, it's just that I'm scared," the boy said, putting his head between his knees. "It's okay, you are a very strong boy, Nagato. Soon the bad men will leave and we'll return to our life as before." And she approached and hugged her son lovingly. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.